Hello and welcome to today's video, where we'll be discussing variables in research. Whether you're a student, researcher, or simply someone who's curious about research, this video is for you. In today's video, we'll be taking a look at the different types of variables in research, including independent, dependent, controlled, and extraneous variables. We'll also be using an example from the popular video game Valorant to help illustrate these concepts. So sit back, grab a notebook, and let's get started. What is a variable? A variable is a characteristic or attribute that can take on different values. In research, variables are used to explain or understand a phenomenon or relationship. Types of variables. Independent variable. The independent variable is the variable that is manipulated or changed by the researcher in order to observe its effect on the dependent variable. It is often referred to as the cause in a research study. In Valorant, an example of an independent variable could be the type of weapon used by the player. If we want to see how the type of weapon affects the player's performance, we would change the type of weapon and observe the effect it has on the player's performance. The independent variable is an important concept in research as it helps us understand the cause and effect relationship between different variables. It's crucial to have a clear understanding of the independent variable as it sets the foundation for the research study. In other words, the independent variable is what we manipulate or change in order to observe the effect it has on the dependent variable. When selecting an independent variable, it's important to consider the following. Relevance. The independent variable should be relevant to the research question. Measurable. The independent variable should be measurable so that it can be manipulated or changed in a controlled manner. Manipulability. The independent variable should be manipulable or changeable in a controlled manner so that we can observe its effect on the dependent variable. In our example of Valorant, the type of weapon used by the player is a relevant, measurable, and manipulable independent variable. We can easily change the type of weapon used by the player and observe the effect it has on their performance. It's also important to note that in some research studies, there may be more than one independent variable. This is known as a multifactorial design and can help us understand the complex relationships between variables. Dependent variable. The dependent variable is the variable that is being observed or measured in a research study. It is often referred to as the effect in a research study. In Valorant, an example of a dependent variable could be the player's accuracy, such as the number of shots that hit the target. The dependent variable is dependent on the independent variable. The dependent variable is a crucial component in research, as it is what we are trying to explain or understand in a study. The dependent variable is the outcome or result that we are interested in, and it is often dependent on the independent variable. In other words, the dependent variable is affected by the independent variable. In our example of Valorant, the player's accuracy, such as the number of shots that hit the target, is the dependent variable. We are interested in understanding the effect that the type of weapon used by the player has on their accuracy. In this example, the player's accuracy is dependent on the type of weapon used. If we change the type of weapon, we can observe the effect it has on the player's accuracy. It's important to note that the dependent variable should be relevant, measurable, and clearly defined in the research study. This will help ensure that the results of the study are meaningful and accurate. Controlled variable. Controlled variables are variables that are held constant or controlled by the researcher to avoid any extraneous variables that could affect the results. In Valorant, an example of a controlled variable could be the player's skill level. To ensure that the type of weapon has a direct effect on the player's accuracy, we need to control for the player's skill level. Controlled variables are an important aspect of research, as they help us control for extraneous variables that could affect the results. By controlling for these variables, we can ensure that the results we observe are directly due to the manipulation of the independent variable, and not due to other factors. In our example of Valorant, the player's skill level is an important controlled variable. To ensure that the type of weapon used by the player has a direct effect on their accuracy, we need to control for the player's skill level. This means that we should have players of similar skill levels participate in the study. If we do not control for the player's skill level, it could be difficult to determine if the effect on accuracy is due to the type of weapon or the player's skill level. It's important to note that there may be many variables that could potentially affect the results of a study. so it's crucial to carefully consider which variables need to be controlled. The choice of controlled variables will depend on the specific research study and the variables that could affect the results. Extraneous variable. Extraneous variables are unintended variables that could affect the results of the study. In Valorant, an example of an extraneous variable could be the player's mood, which could affect their performance. To avoid the impact of extraneous variables, the researcher must either control for them or try to eliminate them from the study. Extraneous variables are a potential threat to the validity of research results. They are unintended variables that could affect the results of the study, even though they are not being studied. These variables could potentially bias the results and make it difficult to determine the true effect of the independent variable on the dependent variable. In our example of Valorant, the player's mood is an example of an extraneous variable. The player's mood could affect their performance, making it difficult to determine the true effect of the type of weapon used on the player's accuracy. To avoid the impact of extraneous variables, the researcher must either control for them or try to eliminate them from the study. In the case of our Valorant example, the researcher could try to control for the player's mood by selecting players who are in a similar mood state, or by having all players participate in the study when they are in the same mood state. It's important to note that it may not always be possible to completely eliminate all extraneous variables from a study. However, by being aware of these variables and trying to control for or minimize their impact, the results of the study can be made more meaningful and accurate. Example. Let's use the following example to see how these variables work in practice. Let's say we are conducting a study to see how the type of weapon used by the player affects their accuracy in Valorant. The independent variable is the type of weapon used by the player. For example, sniper rifle, assault rifle. The dependent variable is the player's accuracy. For example, number of shots that hit the target. The controlled variables are the player's skill level, the game difficulty level, and the player's in-game loadout. The extraneous variables are the player's mood and their physical environment. For example, lighting conditions. Conclusion. In conclusion, variables are important in research as they help us understand and explain relationships between different characteristics. The different types of variables play a crucial role in ensuring that we get accurate and meaningful results from our research. It's important to control or eliminate extraneous variables, as they could affect the results. That's it for today's video on variables in research. I hope you found this information helpful, and now have a better understanding of the different types of variables in research. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them below. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos like this one. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.